Hey, Todd.
Hey, Rich.
Hey, I've been thinking about this EV stuff. I'm scared. You know anybody that can educate me?
Yeah, I do actually. You got time to just meet me at the gate?
I'm Rich Levene, and this is Meet Me at the Gate, where we're not just talking theory, we're tackling real world problems head on, driving solutions that supercharge productivity and team dynamics. Every episode is a journey towards improvement, empowering you, the manager, to lead with innovation and confidence. Join us to transform everyday roadblocks into highways for success.
Hey, I'm at a car lot today. This is called Electrified. Look,
Wow.
so these guys, we're going to go in and meet a guy named Jason, but these guys have figured some stuff out. It's pretty cool.
Let's hear about it.
Look at this place. They even got a coffee bar over there, waiting lounge.
So do electric cars have flux capacitors?
Yeah. So
yes,
this
but you can't get them at 88 miles per hour because bad things happen.
88 miles an hour.
Somebody's
This is
seen the movie.
Jason. Jason, what's your last name?
Wallace.
Jason Wallace, Electrified,
Mhm.
Joplin, Missouri.
Yep.
And this is Rich Levene. He wrote the book. You're doing it wrong. So anyway, you're down in Houston now at the shop, right?
Actually, I'm sitting in lane 1.
What do you want to know about EVs?
I don't know much about EVs. I've been around, this thing they've come up with this weird term, ICE, internal combustion engines. And I don't even know much about electronic fuel injection. The first cars I ever worked on had a carburetor on them. And they were very simple. They're easy to work on. I understood it. And then they started throwing all this crap at them. And now they've gotten so complicated, I don't even know where to begin.
There's still some ICE vehicles out there, right? So you're safe.
Matter
I
of
just want
fact,
to know what's the
right here.
Oh yeah, there you go. That'll work. I'm trying to figure out the EV market, I guess. So, and you're electrified, so you're into hybrid and EV.
Yeah, we're straying away almost completely now from ICE vehicles. I think we've got 4 left on the lot right now. Just because we need, when we started doing this, we always wanted to keep a little bit of just the general gas vehicles on because, especially here in Joplin, Missouri, in the middle of the Midwest, that's what people buy. They're still not quite acclimated with EVs completely. It seems like this last year, people are becoming more and more comfortable with them than they were in the past, for sure. And I think that comes from the fact of just knowing people that own them at this point. Especially Tesla, obviously, is the main. Everybody knows that name, and you see, even here in our small town, you drive around and it's not hard to run up on 3 or 4 Teslas down every road at this point. So yeah, it's definitely shifting. Like I said, we're getting away from the ICE vehicles a little bit. We're gonna we'll do some hybrid stuff here or there if we can get a good deal on them. But as you guys probably all know, the hybrids are bringing lots of money right now.
Yeah. They bring crazy money at auction.
Right. Yeah. We actually sold one yesterday, a Prius hybrid. And I mean, it had like 220,000 miles on it. And the guy came in and was tickled pink that it only had 220 on it. So I'm sitting here going, okay.
I had to go buy some more.
Right.
Where can I get some
So
more?
comparatively speaking, 220 on Prius hybrid, is that high mileage? Is that, in ICE we call it's a lot, right? Combustion
Right.
engine?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, we say it's a lot. I mean, my brother and I have been in this business since we were teenagers, and our family owned a dealership for 60 years that dealt in cars that were primarily under $6,000. So, so you're talking cars that had, back in the 90s, 100,000, 120,000 miles on it. Now we're talking cars that have 200,000 miles on it that's under 6,000. Typically, yeah, I mean, I hate to say it on some of these, like if it's a Subaru or a Honda or a Toyota, if it's got 200,000 on it, it's still got a lot of life left in it,
The Japanese cars started getting stuff a little better, a little faster than the Americans. But let's talk about the transition. So if this is a family business and you've been doing combustion engine or traditional cars, I like to call them cars. Those are cars, and now we have electric cars. Well, how'd you get to electric cars?
Really, it'd been something my brother and I had tossed around for a while. I'm an EV guy in my personal life. All 3 of our cars at home are EVs, myself, my wife, and now my 16-year-old son is in an EV as well. So, we've been that way for a while. And I'm kind of the person I'm like, man, there's got to be a market for that. And no one else is doing it. I mean, here in good old Joplin, Missouri, everybody in town's got lifted pickup trucks, third row big SUVs. You can go anywhere and get that. Why would we want to go do the same thing everyone else is doing? Do something a little bit different. I have friends that have always been in different businesses that do niche things, and it seems like that's where their success comes, is when they're not trying to copycat what everyone else is doing. Now there'll come a time where everybody's doing some form of EVs, I'm sure, and then we'll just be like everyone else. But no, really, and in my mind, it wasn't just EVs; it's affordable EVs stuff. Most of our EVs are for sure under $20,000, so that's affordable market for most of our most people in this area. And then we have a lot of EVs that we're selling for under $6,000, which it makes it even more appealing to people that maybe are on the fence about EVs, but they're like, hey, I can buy, a Nissan Leaf, or I can buy a Fiat 500e, or whatever it is with 50,000 miles on it for $5,000. And I've got my wife a daily driver, or I've got my kid a daily driver. They may only get 100 miles on a charge. For small town us, that's perfect.
What models are you selling them for less than 20,000? Like your make model?
Our highest that we're going to land in is probably going to be the Teslas, 18 to 20 model Teslas. Typically, you're going to be in your Model S's and Model 3s mostly. We do have an X on the way that's going to be priced at 18.9. It's a 17 model. Yeah, typically they're 16, 17, 18, maybe up to 19 and 20 with the Teslas, with just a little bit of miles on it. So, I say a little bit, something around 80,000 to 100,000 typically, sometimes a little bit more. We're going to start actually kind of playing with the even more higher mileage ones. For instance, the one my son is in a Tesla Model 3 that almost has 200,000 miles on it. Drives absolutely perfect. We're going to start kind of dwelling in those, or playing in those a little bit, and see if we can't get them where we can sell them for like 12.9 or 13.9 with maybe like 120 or 130,000 miles on it. And see what the market looks like for those.
This is fascinating because I haven't heard of cars. My brain goes to over 100,000. All right, it's dying. It's on the downside. But I've read some articles about EVs where it's roughly 60,000 miles is the break-even point on, we're going to call it, being environmentally friendly. So where you break even, where the cost to build it starts to come back. What are you hearing from people? Because at 200,000 miles, I'd be like, dude, I ain't touching that car.
Well, here's the deal. And there's a lot of people that way. Coming from growing up, how my brother and I did, we never drove anything with under 100,000 on it. 120, 150 was what we drove. That's what we sold off the car lot. So, and what we drive? What had gas in it off the car lot? For us, like, mileage has never been a worry. And honestly, when it comes to EVs, it's even less of a worry because you don't have the things that go wrong with an internal combustion engine car that you do with EVs. So say, you talk about getting 100,000 miles or so, but even really 60 to 80, you start hearing the noises that, that just happen with internal combustion engines. And then when you get to that 100,000 mark, you start talking about stuff like water pumps, timing chains, thermostats. Just list off everything that you've ever done to a car when it gets a little higher mileage on it. You don't have those. Even transmissions. Most EVs have no transmission. So you're talking about things that are the most expensive things to work on. Your timing chain, water pump, you're looking at a couple $1,000 sometimes. Transmission, I mean, what is it? Is it a Chevy pickup? $5,000-$6,000 probably. You're kind of a little bit, in my opinion, and what we're experiencing so far is when you get into the higher mileage on the EVs, there's a much lower cost of ownership than there is with traditional internal combustion engine cars. And there is, like I said, in our area especially, I don't know if it's everywhere because I can't speak for everywhere, but here, our biggest market is a little bit higher mileage stuff, 80, 90, 100,000 miles would be considered good miles here. And then everything else is, that's what people can afford here. I think our median income here is like $40,000. So it's, we don't have people going out and buying expensive new cars. They're buying stuff with a little bit of miles on it.
Yeah.
Where are we buying these cars at? Where are you finding them? How do you get them?
So obviously right now there is not a lot of these in the Midwest. They're typically California area, Oregon area, stuff like that, where they all kind of started. But we are starting to see a lot more. And Ty probably attest that when you're at auctions, you're seeing them a lot more.
Yeah. Every time I see them, I'm like, take a
Yeah,
picture.
yeah, we get texts. We honestly source from everywhere at this point. We use the online stuff like Backlots and everything. Or sorry, Open Lane. They're called Open Lane now. Yeah, we use Manheim online. We do a lot. we'll buy. The nice thing with the EVs, it's much easier to buy them sight unseen because you don't necessarily have to hop in the car, turn it, hear if it's knocking, hear if it's,
That's
you
a
know what I
good
mean?
point.
You don't need the things you don't have to do with that. Oh, is it making this noise? Is the lifter ticking? Yada, yada, whatever.
Yeah.
So we can actually,
What's the color is the exhaust?
right, exactly. We don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. We just can really buy, as long as we can get a good picture of, like, say, a Tesla with the software screen, or if we can get a picture of, like, state of charge and stuff like that. It's not really that hard. We buy. Tesla takes most of their trade-ins that they get, traded into them, because they don't use cars. They're not their business model is not a traditional dealership model. They send all their trades to Chicago, or their trade-ins to Chicago. So we'll buy, and they'll run them through Odessa, Chicago, and we'll buy quite a few through Odessa, Chicago. And they're just Tesla trade-ins. And people, honestly, our customers really like it when we say, hey, this one was a trade-in to Tesla for another Tesla. Because typically, I mean, just like any car, you trade your Corvette in for another Corvette, it obviously means you love that Corvette. Or, you know what I mean? Like, any car is that way.
This one's one
interesting.
I'm going to sell this one in 2 weeks. This thing's gonna be or knocking bugs down somewhere here in Texas in 2 weeks.
Okay, so now this is where we bring Tyler in. Tyler is messed with, he's a tech that has dabbled in these.
Yeah, been to quite a few courses on bringing an EV into the regular mechanic shops because it's not something that just anyone can typically work on with the diagnostics equipment and everything. I mean, regular maintenance like tires, brakes, suspension, stuff like that can be changed just like normal, but without proper diagnostics equipment, you can't even find out what's going on with your Tesla.
Help me out with that, because traditional. I've been in auto auctions for way too long, since the late 1900s. And you have arbitratable items, and Ty touched on some of this stuff: transmissions, engines, the different things, structure damage. But when you have an EV, like, for example, I sell everything, every EV, every hybrid we sell here, we sell as is. You can't arbitrate anything on it. Why? Because I have mechanics, I don't have electricians. So help me
Right.
help me with that transaction. And the people that are listening to this podcast are probably thinking the same thing right now. I think I'm speaking for a lot of people. We're scared. We're scared because we don't know, we don't understand.
For sure.
fair.
For sure. Yeah. It's all about the unknown. And that's really, and I think that's why I think, especially in our area, again, we are middle America here, and you're not far off from that yourself. Like, we aren't in California where everyone's this open-minded. Oh yeah, let's just hop right in and do this. But it's more about, it's just like everything in life. You experience it and you kind of get a taste of it, and you're like, okay, maybe this isn't as scary as I thought it was. I always equate it to hopping on an airplane for the first time. You're like, oh, this is going to be horrible. It's going to be, oh, this could be the worst thing ever. And then you get up in the air and you're like, oh, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. So it's really is just about experience and getting that. I think a lot of this is life as a whole right now. We get on the internet and you can find bad things about everything you want to. You can hear horror stories, and are they out there? For sure. But, go on. I've got a Ford Escape I'm looking at right now. Go on and look up Ford Escapes. I'm sure there's a million things to say bad about them as well. But as a whole, they're a fine car. There's nothing wrong with them. There's a lot of things on these cars you can do yourself. We just this morning was working on the front suspension of one. They have lower control arm. Well, it's the bushing that goes out, but you just replace the entire control arm. It's 3 bolts, not a big deal. Super easy to do. You've probably done that kind of stuff 100 times. But the biggest thing when it comes to a lot of them is the diagnostics of the battery and stuff itself. The actual motors and stuff, I've watched a couple videos of people switching them out. And then there are some, like take the Nissan Leaf, for instance. If you've got a lift, it's 12 volts to take the battery out and change it. And you can change your entire high voltage battery to a new one. So, then they're going to become more easier and easier to do that, in my opinion. Yeah.
Plug and play.
Plug and play. Yeah. Yeah. The way you would take out your old battery of like your Nokia phone back in the day.
Need a new one.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But going back, sorry, went off topic there, but as far as it comes to arbitration and stuff like that, our experience with most of them is there's no arbitration on the EV components itself. So battery and, the EV motors and stuff like that, typically.
Yeah, and you're buying them online, so it clearly says as is wherever you're buying them.
Typically so. Yeah. Typically so.
You're not far off, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tyler, Ty just bought a car, sticks it in the shop. It's an EV. Where do you start as a tech or a mechanic? What do you call yourself if working on an electrical car? You can't be a mechanic, are you? Are you an electrician? Are you a
I mean,
EV tech?
it just depends that day. You wear a different hat.
Whatever I got to do to get the job.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean,
I
it
am.
depends on his issue. If it's a regular drivability issue as far as suspension, you treat it like any other vehicle. There's nothing different, actually. But if he can't charge his, for instance, without proper diagnostics, I can't tell you what's wrong with it. It costs a lot
That's
to
what
get
we
into
ran
it.
into the other day.
That's exactly what we ran into.
What
What
did we run
happened? What's that, Ty?
We had a
Listen-
Tesla Model 3. People were they were from Texas. They were traveling through this
Oh,
area to
no.
come back from Chicago. And they're in a Tesla Model 3 and they pulled over because their battery, the car just shut off. The battery wasn't charging anymore, the low voltage battery, just the 12-volt battery. And we couldn't figure out why it's not allowing the car to turn on anymore after the low voltage battery's replaced. And it's just because we simply don't have the proper diagnostics equipment to be able to hook up to it at this point. Because it's expensive to get started with a whole new set of tools, essentially.
So,
Yeah, because when it comes to, and a lot of them you can still hook into a normal port, but the Teslas
Yeah,
specifically,
Tesla specifically.
Tesla specifically, you've got to have your own special. It's basically you're calling what would essentially be Geek Squad from
Yeah.
and they're going to have to use their plugins to and they'll got in and. I'm sure in that scenario just there, because I was involved a little bit there. It was one of those things like you get it down to the Tesla service center, they plug in their computer and go, okay, do a couple things, run a program in the background, and boom,
And that's exactly
solves.
what happened.
So what
Yeah.
kind of money are you talking for this technology? It's technology, right?
Right. Typically for something like that, and my experiences with the service center has been very hit and miss, and I'm sure everybody and their brothers has been that way. Tulsa specifically, they're great down there. But like for a quick diagnostic like that, I think they're like 150 an hour. Like they're not, it's not horrible. Heck, shops around here sometimes around that,
Yeah,
for just a normal
close.
mechanic. So, it's not horrible for something like that, especially if it's something they can
But
get in.
can you
And
buy the diagnostic stuff?
it's out there. As he said, it's expensive.
Yeah,
Do you have any idea?
I don't have off the top of my head, not a clue.
I
I
know-
know that
Yeah,
the software being able to read what is going on with the Tesla is what's expensive.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. You're going to have to invest in the technology, Rich.
Well, and it's just like everything. Eventually, everything with technology. I mean, if you go back to when we first bought iPhones, our iPhones were
Yeah.
thousands of dollars, and now you get one for a couple $100 or for free when you get a new plan. It's the same thing as the tech, and anything. And what I experienced with the Teslas and all of them, at one point, putting a windshield in a Tesla was several $1,000s. Now you can get them through SafeLight for $400 or $500. The technology is the same way. Eventually, that stuff will come down where once we see more Tesla certified shops and stuff like that. I know there's only one that I can think of that's actually certified, and that's up in Nixa, Missouri from us. But yeah, once it's more affordable for guys like him to just grab it, even if it's $3, $4, $5,000 as opposed to $10,000, $20,000, that's enough where you could say, okay, I could make this work and make some money with it, as opposed to $20,000 investment. That's kind of especially around here.
if we're not seeing it.
Right.
well, y'all had me earlier convinced to start an entire lane of EV vehicles and run 50, 75 of them a week, because I can run them up to 200, 250,000 miles. I don't have to worry about engine knocks, transmissions going out. And I was all in until you said, I don't have the diagnostic equipment. Because what happens in my experience is I'll get a repo in. It's a Tesla usually 9 times out of 10. And it's a 6,000 pound paperweight. I can't do a dang thing with that thing until I get Tesla out here, airdrop it through their card so we can actually get into the car and get it going. That's my barrier to entry.
So down in Texas, the service centers are all over the place, and they have what they call mobile rangers. I don't know if you've ever called anyone for something like that, but their mobile rangers will come and work on them on site. And I know Houston area specifically, they're all over the place there because, my experience with Houston is like the Teslas are starting to be all over there. But that's the best way to do it, because 9 times out of 10, it is something, barring the battery just completely goes kaput on it. It's something they literally can walk up with their laptop and plug into and resolve. And I would say that's probably 9 times out of 10. The bigger issues come, obviously with the battery going out. But nowadays, as long as it's, these newer LFP batteries, which would be in like the 2016 and up Teslas, and then most other brands have, outside of maybe a few that are older, or everybody's using LFP batteries now, and the LFP batteries are pretty much bulletproof. It's like 2.5% of them go out across all manufacturers. That's not just Tesla, so it's not not common for them to legitimately go out. A module or something here or there can go out. That's something a mobile ranger can replace. A lot of it's not. There's really not. If you ever get the chance, the first one we ever bought, we tore it apart because we wanted to see like what makes this thing work. So we can intelligently say, hey,
That's the best way.
this is how this works. And honestly, there's not a lot to them at the end of the day. It's a rolling computer, so
I
a lot of everything that can be solved, much like your computer can, by someone plugging another computer into it and typing away on it and fixing it.
I laugh because I can say this because my father is resting in heaven right now and can't hear me confess to this. But I learned how to work on combustion engines by taking apart his lawnmower and putting it back together. But if he knew I was doing that because he told me, he said no. I said, Dad, this isn't working right. I need to fix it. And he said, we'll take it to the shop. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have time for that. I got money to make. I was making $5. And for every yard I couldn't cut that day and that mower being down, I said, I got it. So I tore it down, figured out what was wrong with it, put it back together. But I quickly learned what was going on with combustion engines. My dad's not around to give it to me unless somebody wants to will me or give me an electric car to take apart. I'm all in. But back again, it's like maybe I don't have the curiosity of a 5-year-old in a Batman T-shirt anymore either. But going back to this, like, how do you know when you buy these cars? Are you buying inoperable Teslas online, or are you
No.
buying every one of them runs and drives?
Yeah, we're trying to buy the better stuff. I mean, honestly, like we do buy stuff with a little bit of miles again because our goal is to be able to sell them under $20,000. But at the end of the day, like definitely running and driving. Typically, and we were discussing this the other day, is like our bill, because we have been dealing a lot of internal combustion engine cars as well last year. Our bills for getting a car ready that's a EV versus an internal combustion engine car are night and day. We're talking generally our EVs maybe need some tires and they need a detail. Internal combustion engine car, we get it here. What's it need? Like I said, it needs a water pump. It needs a timing chain. Yeah, exactly. You've done a few things for us recently. That's
Heater core.
heater core, stuff
Turns
like
into
that.
a $5,000 job.
Exactly. But
Well,
yeah,
listen,
no, we're not buying in-ops or anything. The nice thing is most auctions now, when you go online, obviously Open Lane, the OVE with Manheim does a pretty good job. That's a Clear, their new online store, if you will. It seems to be pretty solid too. But they do a pretty good job with pictures, putting video up if there's engine noise or something like that on non EVs.
CR.
Yes, they're CRs. Most of them are getting pretty tied down with those, and they're doing a pretty good job with them, in our opinion. We have not, I would say, with ours, with the EVs, we have not really been bitten with anything buying it online that way. With internal combustion engine cars, little things. It's stuff, it's just stuff you expect, though. It's stuff that you kind of just go, oh, that happens. But yeah, we don't buy the in-ops. We try to. Maybe someday we will, like when we're more comfortable working on the actual battery part ourselves. But or someone like he gets to where he's comfortable with doing it, where we can say, hey, this one might have a bad battery. We can buy a battery for $2,000-$3,000. Send it over.
Specific cell.
Or a specific cell in the battery, or a module went bad, anything like that, then we can be like, oh, well, we can get that cheap. We'll send it over and have him fix it.
I see it as a win-win for you, Rich, and for you as well. But you know how Rich and I always talk about auctions, and we want to start our own auction. It's called red light auction. Everything's red light, as is. And so then Rich has taught me the way cars bring most money at an auction is you got a reasonable floor, you're there repping it, and the title's there. So if you have those things, the cars.
We look at cars all the time, and I won't kid you, if it says, oh, the title, they got the title to it, we'll give a little bit. We'll give a little bit more because we know we can get that on lot and ready to go. And especially like what I said with our EVs, where typically it's just a detail and on the lot. That works great for us because like we're talking, if it's not too far away, or we can have it in a week, have it on the lot ready to go.
That's what we call time to line. And so we talk about, Rich and I, we talk about wholesale a lot, and Tyler's getting more familiar with it. You look at a guy who buys 50 cars, where are the titles, number one? Where are we at on body? Where are we at on mechanic stuff, right? Next thing you know, it's 90 days.
Yeah.
so when you're buying these cars at auction, let's compare it to the older model or the traditional model. What is the time to line to get them ready for sale? Electric car versus traditional car.
I mean, barring, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, but you could say that for the traditional car as well. It's as long as we can get title, because we don't sell anything without title. We're old school that way.
That's a good thing.
We won't put them out without title. Yeah, it is in my opinion as well. Our grandfather raised us that way. He would never let everything set on the back line until it had the title. So
Didn't
yeah,
care if anybody walked in with cash.
he didn't care. Did not care. No, I don't have the title yet. Sorry. You knew him well. Yeah, typically our experience has been if we can get something that's close, if we buy to Kansas City, Springfield, something like that, and can get here the next day, our detail guy can get to them pretty quick for us. I mean, realistically, if we can get title mailed out the same day or pick up title when we, at auction, we can do 4 or 5 days on an EV sometimes. Internal combustion engine car just kind of depends on, again, we're a little looser on them sometimes because we will be like, okay, this one needs a little bit of body work. Where with our EVs, we don't typically buy anything that needs body work because the customer for the EV is way pickier than the customer that's buying the $6,000 Ford Escape with 150,000 miles on it. They're looking, they almost, and I realize again, we're selling these Teslas for close to $20,000. So and for a lot of people in our area, $20,000 is a lot of money. And that's, they're buying at the top end of what they can buy. So they do want it to be in good shape. They don't like to see paint work done. They don't like to see body damage. They want to see tires in good shape. They don't want pitted windshields or anything. These things that we can get away with 50,000 mile, $6,000, $7,000 Ford Escapes, we can't get away with there. So we have to be a little bit pickier. So typically when they land to us, they should be in pretty good condition outside of a detail. Like I said, maybe some tires or something like that.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah, 4 or 5 days is typically what we're looking at. And that's, we could compare apples to apples and say, yeah, if we were buying $20,000, Chevy pickups or something like that, we could probably do the same thing, barring they didn't need anything. But it's always a little something, it's got an oil leak. It's got, something
always
like
everyone.
yeah, it's got a little shut, and especially when you're buying online like we do, where we're not getting to hop in every car, and even when we buy our internal combustion engine cars online, we're going off of what the guy that inspected it said. He said he drove it up to 35 mile an hour down the road and it drove out fine. Well, we get in it and at 55, it's got a little shake. Okay, well, we got to send it over to him to check out the front end on it, But that's any of them. But yeah, typically it's a little bit quicker for us with the EVs just because of how we're buying them. But again, if we wanted to compare apples to apples, we could probably do the same with an internal combustion engine car if we are buying that level of car.
I feel like there's a lot more components that can fail on the ICE vehicles now, actually.
Right.
Every single type of fluid that can leak, you have all your traditional stuff, suspension that fails, just like any other vehicle. But you have leaks, you have misfires, you have all these different things that can go bad. When the Teslas, you only have 2 major components that are going to potentially go bad and cost, more than the average repair, which would be battery and motor.
Right.
So as long as those 2 are good, it's your regular vehicle, I think, is honestly a little bit less components to fail.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah, you've just got less moving parts at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Wow. Well,
That's fascinating
amazing.
stuff. Absolutely
I think,
amazing. You're changing my mind slowly. But you're the first one that's actually given me some pros on why I should consider an EV or why I should even consider selling an EV.
Yeah, the East Coast, because I was living in Virginia Beach for the last 5 years. I moved back out to the Midwest this year. EV's huge out there. Every dealership selling EVs, and every single gas station and grocery store you go to has a charging station, even if it's not just the Tesla chargers.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Meet Me at the Gate. I hope the conversations help to fuel your drive and equip you with insights to steer your team towards success. Remember, the road to success is always under construction. And until next time, keep your engines revving and your gas tanks full.